Hi everybody, welcome back. And today I'm discussing the SaaS marketing, but from the point of view of people who have just entered this profession, either through compulsion or maybe by choice. Okay, I don't think anybody chose this line, but anyway, they will say that they did. But I have with me five bright pioneers in SaaS marketing, all of whom has worked with me as Jim Parsons or Sheldon says they don't work for me, they work with me. So I have Vishwa, I have Rishika, Medha, and Vaibhav. So why don't you introduce? Yeah, so let's go alphabetically. So Vishwa, you first.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Vishwajit Mahapatra. People call me Vishwa, and I'm a writer who does marketing, and I'm also someone who fights a lot. I am training in MMA and everything under the sun. I'm an ordinary guy with a lot of passion and a lot of distraction going on. Hopefully, Deepto has seen that quite often when he started out interviewing me. And as a marketer, it's now already 2 years. I have been in SaaS marketing. And let's hope that the session goes well.
Thank you, Rishika. No, Medha, you next.
Hi, folks. As Deepta said, I'm Medha Yukumar. This is my second year in the SaaS industry. I first started out in Netcore and now I'm working in SuperProcure as a product marketer. Marketing is my passion. Apart from marketing, what I really enjoy is, and I'm an avid reader. I read everything under the sun. I love reading books. That's something I take as a serious as well as a passionate hobby. That's in brief about me.
Okay, Rishika.
Hello everyone, Rishika here. I'm sure most of you, I have worked with most of you in this call. I was born and brought up in Lucknow, and I started my professional career in a SaaS company, and currently I'm working with Freshworks, which is also a SaaS company based out of Chennai. I'm a big foodie, so my recent hobby has been cooking good food for me, which my parents are really proud of, and I'm also proud of myself because I finally know how to cook my own food. So yeah, that's something that I'm learning and exploring every day.
Vaibhav, shoot.
So hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dipto, for having us on the call. And feels like a mini reunion. Really happy to be here. So about myself, I'm not sure to say. I'm pretty ordinary, like Biswa said. I have not found any extracurricular which I can pursue as passion as of now. I've also realized that I don't have any interest during this lockdown. I remember before this lockdown, I used to spend my Saturdays and Sundays roaming around the city, going to gigs and so on. I like combat sports. Biswa trains in it. I love watching them. I love MMA, UFC, etc. So for profession, I work as a product marketer. I currently work at High Radius. Prior to that, I was in Zycus. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation today.
Okay, so first question, and anybody can start, and then we go round robin. So I mean, you have some exposure to SaaS marketing. 2 years is not insignificant. So before we come to your first year and all the stuff. So from your point of view, from where you are seeing, do you think SaaS marketing will remain the way it is now? And don't ask me what it will be tomorrow, because if I knew, I would be making billions of dollars, right? So will it remain the way it is now, which is the way it is now?
Sure, I think I can start on this. I think I come in from a product marketing perspective here. It has definitely evolved in the 2 years that we've been here. From the conventional digital transformation, it's now moving to AI, which I personally feel is much more aspirational in nature.
Let me focus the question again. Will SaaS marketing remain the way it is? Which means not, product transformation is happening, so that is there. But the way we market products, the way we get leads, will that remain this as is, or will it change?
So I think so. This is AI is sort of an example of this. I think it's moving to a little more aspirational than more functional in nature. I think the part of this reason is our prospects, which are CPOs, CFOs. They also have personal brands, and when we come with this type of messaging, it resonates with them. Yeah, so I think this has evolved to a different spectrum of things.
Okay, anybody else? Vaibhav, I think you might have to check your connection. There was a little bit of echo because I just checked. At my end, it seems
Is
okay.
it lagging?
It is breaking up.
Okay.
So maybe you want to log in and log out and log in back. I don't know.
Let me check.
But I think most of what you just said wouldn't have been captured. But that's fine. We can always revisit. So
I think
Rishika.
Deepto, I'll weigh in if it's all right. So according to me, I think we are in a constant landscape, which is time and again constantly changing. First, before COVID, it was something else. Now after COVID, it is something else. The way we approach marketing, I feel, is a continuous change. The only constant is the change. So I'm sure with technology coming in, the way we measure marketing, the metrics that we use, the kind of tools that we use to ensure that we are getting leads, or the kind of strategies that we use for product marketing, all depends on the consumer. So as in when the digital transformation across several industries keep upgrading and changing, I'm sure even our marketing strategies and our approach in the B2B space will constantly keep evolving.
I personally feel that yes, there's going to be a lot of automation coming into picture, especially because we have so many tools who can, like for example, Mailchimp, which can send out mails from our behalf. There is an entire tool which can run your entire campaign services part of it. So I feel a lot of human or manual.
Rishika, you're plugging Mailchimp and you're working for Freshworks. Not good. And Meera does not have a good experience of Mailchimp. Okay, go ahead.
That just came to my mind right now, Dipto. But I personally feel that automation, a lot of manual intervention into the marketing processes might become redundant in the future. People might rely on these tools to get things done faster and probably focus on more strategic part of things instead of doing more redundant tasks, which we do on a daily basis. So that's what I feel would be the future for SaaS marketing.
Vishwa, what about you?
Yeah, so I would actually take a different route. What I feel personally is marketing, SaaS marketing in general has came back to its origin, what I feel in after COVID and post-COVID, because I don't have experience of like 20, 30 years, but I feel that it will obviously go back to the same question of is it a consumer or is it a human? That's the basic difference that we need to look up to when we are looking into marketing. And post COVID, it has shifted from consumer to more human, because you cannot plug in a lot of mails, you cannot do a lot of demand gen activity, you cannot put in a lot of only product related messaging out, because everyone is doing it. So how I can do it differently? Any product that is differentiated in that market is in the marketing scheme already is doing better. Is someone who is treating the prospect as a human first and then as a prospect. And that's where SaaS marketing is going back to. And obviously, while it evolves much, and when technology comes into the picture and there are more automation and stuff like that, as Rishika told, the more automation it comes, it becomes easier for a marketer like me to work on the psychological aspect of it, where I treat the person more as a human. And second thing that is going to change due to technology is how we measure marketing efforts. And that is something SaaS marketing is evolving in. And working in the demand gen for like these 2 times, I've seen in 2 organizations how measuring marketing efforts changes from just leads to then more strategically looking into how my funnel is placed, on how I'm actually marketing is affecting the revenue. So this change is only coming because of technology into play. All organizations cannot afford it. Obviously, the technology comes at its old expense. But yes, as long as there are more players in the market, technology would be helpful and measurement would be.
You got disconnected. So you would like to complete what you wanted to say because it was not clear. Vaibhav?
Yes. I think Biswa covered the point that I was trying to make. It's about people as prospects. It's evolving to that than business as prospects. And the example that I quoted was one of them. I think I would want to elaborate on Rishika's point as well, where she mentioned a lot of automation coming into marketing as well. I think one more angle I see here is, as individual contributors, we did a lot of heavy lifting, right from conceptualization to creating content to copywriting, so on. Now I see a lot of catering to B2B SaaS company, from some creative aspects as well.
Okay, so let me get a little deeper on this question. Okay, see, you all of you touched upon automation. Okay, now I want a yes or no answer to this because we will debate about it later on. Okay, see, what is happening is automation gives you data, it gives you insights also because AI and analytics gives you data, and the marketers, based on the insights, takes action. Right now, the future is such, okay, or might be such that even that action will be taken by machines. Okay, which means, for example, which mail to send what, when is something which a marketer decides, right? Okay, which segment, how to segment, what the marketer decides based on the data insights, analytics that comes in your front, right? And that's where human beings are still there, right? So, given the present scenario, and I just want a yes or no answer, do you think even the last aspect of taking action will be taken over by machines? Before you say no, remember Gong, Drift, to certain extent, Fresh Folks are not there as yet, but Gong, Drift are actually doing that. Conversational AI platforms, people who know a little bit of conversational AI, their entire vision is based on that. Entire sales can happen online without human intervention. Sales, which means even the payment transaction can happen without human intervention. Do you think that is possible in the immediate future? Yes or no?
No,
What do you
Deepto.
say?
No.
What about you? Yes or no answer? So no, Vishwa, let's take a quick round poll. I can't hear you. You're on mute, Vishwa.
Yeah, my answer would be no.
Rishika?
My answer would be yes.
Vaibhav?
I think no.
Okay, so we will come back to this question and I will tell you why I think it will be a yes, very much a possibility. Okay, so firstly, let's go back to 2019, right? Or in case of Medha, maybe 2020. When you joined the company that you joined, right? First job, in fact, all of you, three of you joined Zycus and one of you joined Netcore, right? So, and Medha also was to join Zycus, but I took her on board in Netcore. So my question to you is that, was it, and you can be candid now, you don't have to worry. Was it the choice that you wanted to make when you were going through the campus rounds and all that stuff?
I'd go first.
And when you did opt for, see, campus is not exactly the place that you can make a choice, right? Sometimes the placement department says, okay, you have to take it up. Sometimes you are worried that you will not get a job, and so on and so forth. For example, there was someone from Vaibhav's batch who's now in CM.com. I forget his name. Okay, whatever. Huh?
Shivendra.
Shivendra. Okay, so he was not very keen to take up Zycus, not because he didn't want to serve Zycus, because he felt that he could have been paid more, and perhaps rightly so. But some of them, okay. So was it the choice that you wanted to make? Rishika, you wanted to go?
Definitely, yes, because I was very particular about which companies am I sitting for, and I was, even though there was this pressure of getting placed as soon as possible, but I was still very choosy as to which are the companies that I genuinely want to work for. Even though I'll be very honest, I had no clue about SaaS marketing, but I knew Zycus as a company primarily because they are coming for internships as well. And I had also spoken to some of the seniors and super seniors, and I knew Zycus as an organization was a good place to work in. And that was one of the criteria. The other criteria, I'll be very honest, was the package as well, because a lot of B2C agencies, even though they're big names, but they don't really pay well. And to be able to survive in a city like Bombay, if that was a very important criteria for me to be financially independent, so that I'm not dependent on my parents later on. So Zycus was again another reason which fit into that category, and it was a cautious decision that I had made. So it didn't just happen by fluke. So and I'm still happy with that decision.
Anybody else?
I'll go next, Deepto. I think here I see it as a different.
Sure, go ahead, madam.
Yeah, okay, thanks. I see it as a two-part question here, Deepto. So to start off with, most colleges, MBA colleges, do not give us an exposure on anything related to SaaS marketing or B2B. Everything that we learn, everything that we grasp, the case studies, everything is related to B2C. So you invariably train to think when you're sitting for placements that the company that you will be facing is a B2C organization. So we are limited knowledge-wise, exposure-wise there itself. But having said that, I had an opportunity to work with Zycus where I interned, which was my first exposure into the word SaaS itself. So from there, I think the next conscious choice that I made to go to Netcore was, as I said, it was a very conscious choice because Netcore is at the helm of marketing automation. So it gave me an understanding into the field that I loved passionately. So I think it was a conscious choice at a later stage. The first opportunity to work with Zycus was more or less a fluke rather than a conscious decision back then, because we had no exposure to anything related to B2B.
Anybody else? Vaibhav?
Right. So I think completely agree with Medha that is the point I was going to make as well. My perception of technology marketing or technology industry in India was from IT services perspective. TCS, Infosys. I thought those were the companies that are technology in India. So at the time of placement when Zycus had come, I had no understanding about SaaS. But it was one of the very few companies on campus who were offering a core marketing profile. Very few, I think it was a handful of them. So there was a pre-placement talk where I think we were shown the Magic Quadrant. So I went back to my dorm room and I searched about Magic Quadrant and searched about the company. So so that was where I first was exposed to SaaS as a business, SaaS as marketing as well. The second validation that I got was the interview process itself, where other companies wanted candidates to be in a shouting match because that was the conventional wisdom that people who are aggressive will be able to do sales. Where Zycus's process was much more streamlined, much more market sort of validated that I wanted to be in this profile. And yeah, I think I don't regret it at all. And that there was validation across the placement processes. Yeah.
Sure. Vaibhav, just one thing, you might have to make your sentences shorter because you are still cracking up. But still, it's better, but still might want to make it shorter. Yeah, Vishwa.
To be honest, when placement for Zycus actually happened, it was the only company that was offering marketing role at our institute. But I had prior exposure to SaaS marketing because I have interned with Freshworks during my summer internship. So I had known SaaS marketing as a domain, but to be honest, when I was sitting in the placement, it was not much of a choice, and it was completely out of pure desperation of getting into a marketing job. And whenever we thought of, because I was specializing in marketing, and my second specialization was strategic management. So both are the domains that are not well known in IIT Madras. So the problem was most of the profiles were on analytics, whereas for marketing it was the only company. And just before the interview, I remember I had a 1 hour or 1.5 hour session with Ashna. She was my senior in Freshworks as well, and she joined Zycus when I was interviewing for the Zycus profile. So she gave me a lot of ideas, and then just maybe like 2 days before the interview, I went through HubSpot course completely on inbound marketing to actually understand how things work, and then got placed finally. And luckily, I think I was very lucky that I got into SaaS marketing, because otherwise I would have to go in a very conventional role, which is a very generic role in IIT Madras of a associate consultant or some on service industry.
So you're saying that you kind of knew that SaaS marketing something you would perhaps taken up even by the end of your first year. Is it something which you already kind of knew?
Yeah, when I was sitting for placements, I had an idea, because that came from an experience that whatever you did in internship is something that you might get placed when you are doing your finals. So I was interested in it on an angle of demand, not directly on demand gen, because I was more interested in the digital marketing part of it. Because even in my second year, all the projects on brand, all the subjects that we took on marketing, all my projects were actually based on digital marketing expertise. So I was more interested into that. But then I realized that it's not only B2C who actually uses digital marketing platform. It's mostly a B2B organization like Freshworks. So that time I didn't have idea of Zycus, to be honest, but I knew competition.
So let me ask this question to all of you. You're just fairly fresh MBAs now. So why don't I mean I am creating a course for IIM Ranchi on B2B SaaS marketing. It took a lot of convincing, almost a year of convincing for me to create the course for them, right? So why do you think most B schools do not have courses, or even they don't pay attention in most cases on SaaS marketing or B2B marketing? I can understand B2B marketing because manufacturing companies usually do not come to campus to pick up or manufacture. Only B2B marketing, apart from technology marketing, do not come to campus for picking up marketing guys, right? But SaaS companies do, and there are a number of SaaS unicorns, as you can see, it's increasing every day, and they are now going to the big league campuses and all that stuff. So, okay, so so why do you think the management institutes do not pay attention to this specialized area of marketing, which is different from, honestly speaking, if you see an IT services company, they don't do any marketing. They just do support work and all that stuff. It's only in technology, only SaaS does, because pull works over here than more than push, right? So why do you think the B schools don't have? Because you just have passed out a year or two back.
I'll take that up first. So there is a basic misconception about product of SaaS product in general when we go to a marketing session. As Medha was telling that most of the case studies were B2C, and so the problem with our education system, which is still prevalent, it still goes back to the case studies of 1996. There's a goal to back to case study of 2003. But the SaaS marketing has actually grown in the last 10 to 15 years. Though we have a lot of information that is there in the web directly available, because SaaS marketing does that. Every SaaS company has a marketing team, and every marketing team puts out their thoughts in LinkedIn or any platform. You'll get loads of information for free, but it has not been transformed into a scientific studies subject. So that's the major gap. When I'm explaining something from a perspective of, say, Kotler, it's so easy because he has done that research way back, and still the basic problem is that we are not doing it here in India. But when I went to Germany for my exchange program, there was SaaS marketing being done easy, being taught, because the thought of product, not a physical product but a software product, is there incited into them. Here it is still thought that marketing or the product only that exists is in physical form, and all the marketing studies that goes into it is mostly prone to B2C, because it looks like the more glamorous one. But it will change eventually, because now SaaS has become bigger than as a workforce. I feel it is much more bigger. It is becoming bigger and bigger.
I'm talking about B2B SaaS, B2C SaaS, B2C SaaS like Swiggy and all that stuff are anyway marketed.
No, I'm not talking. B2B SaaS.
As B2C. So anybody else wants to? Why do you think? I mean, even now with so many companies coming to campus, there isn't any specialized courses in SaaS marketing. I mean, there is, you have.
I think that there are companies coming to campus for sure, but not enough. So that's how business schools work. So for example, at IMT Ghaziabad, we had a batch of 600 students. So I don't think there'd be enough companies from SaaS pick up 600 students. So we create placeable products, which is our students, and a lot of
that is changing.
Companies were sales companies. So that's why the curriculum was skewed to.
The most important reason that people, SaaS companies, do not venture into at least the big B schools is because of the salaries that have to be paid, right, to compete with others. So yeah,
I think Deepto, I agree with Vaibhav, but then there is another extended point to it. In my experience, there are two problems here at an industry level that first starts. The first thing is there are several manufacturing B2B companies that do not know the difference between sales and marketing. They club everything together and broadly name it as sales and marketing department. That is the first problem. Second, if we look at SaaS industries, even within the SaaS marketing domain, there is separate lead generation, there is demand generation, then there is product marketing, there is content marketing. Many folks within the organization do not know how to differentiate lead generation versus product marketing versus growth versus content marketing. It's a very thin line. This is something that you mentioned a couple of times. It's a very thin line. It's very ambiguously defined. So they haven't defined marketing or differentiated it from sales. Many B2B companies still get in a lot of prospects via sales heavily, and marketing becomes a support to sales rather than a revenue driving engine. Because of this kind of nature in the industry, a lot of stress does not take back to the schools, because in schools marketing in B2C has matured. It has its own definition. There is a clear definition of what is brand marketing, brand management. There is a clear definition of what is probably core marketing, or what is PR and what is media. It's a core definition that is established in B2C, which hasn't happened in B2B yet. We are progressing there. Maybe once we progress in the industry in terms of its definition matures, it will seep back into the institutions, because now, as Vaibhav and even Biswa said, they don't have a choice. They have to include it in the curriculum because the market demands it. Now, there's no demand for it.
I personally feel there are two things, which I think Biswa also mentioned earlier, was that since we've heard so many good marketing stories from B2C companies, like we know what Fevicol did, what Coca-Cola did. So all of these stories seem to be very interesting, and I feel that's precisely why they include it into our curriculum, and they tend to overlook B2B marketing stories, which we haven't really heard of such great stories as of yet, which is a bad thing, because now when I have actually moved to SaaS marketing, I feel that I spent 2 years in a media and marketing communication course. I did my MBA in media and marketing, and I was not taught B2B at all, which is wrong. And secondly, again, coming back to what Vaibhav also said, we were a batch of 200 rough students, and mostly everybody was inclined towards B2C, probably because what was taught to us. So the inclination for people to actually sit for SaaS companies was also very low, pretty low.
So let me ask a question, since you said that the demarcation is difficult. Google is a B2B or a B2C company?
B2B.
Only one answer. Vishwa?
B2B.
Medha?
I would say both.
No, it can't be both. B2B or B2C?
I would say it's largely B2C.
Vaibhav?
I always saw it as B2C. Never really considered it to be B2B.
So it's a
But
tie,
it is
right?
B2B.
2:2. Okay, let me put it this way. Okay, let's ask this question to you. Okay, which is the main revenue stream for Google?
Ads.
Google Ads.
Ads.
Yes, ads.
So who advertises on Google? Enterprises, the businesses?
Yeah.
So it's B2B, right? Or isn't it? Maybe we'll come to the debate. Okay. Now, before we come to the main question, which I think will take a long time to discuss on that, I wanted to say, since you came into your companies, obviously you don't know what you got into, right? So what was the managerial style that you expected? Okay, I know few of you had a problem with your managers. Okay, and what is the ideal managerial style? What did you expect? Okay, and obviously the ideal managerial style is the business manager, right? You do whatever you want. That's an utopian society. Even if you're a CEO, you have to report to the customer, right? So or the board of directors. So what is the ideal managerial style? What was wrong that you found out? You don't have to name the companies. What was wrong that you found out? What was right? But what would you set right? I mean, what would you do? What was the first question is, what is the ideal managerial style?
I think, please go ahead, Rishika.
Okay. So for me, I have worked in 2 companies as of now, and I've been lucky that I've had close to 4 to 5 managers, because I was moving role in practice. And at Freshworks, I have 1 manager. I think for a brief period, even Dipto, you were 1 manager for a month or 2. So I have had a fair share of experience of working with different managers, and this is what I now personally feel that this is what I would expect from my ideal manager. Firstly would be the factor of mutual trust. I feel it is very important for me to be able to trust my manager, and similarly, my manager should be able to trust me with, let's say, critical tasks, with critical important activities that need to be done. Similarly, I should be able to trust my manager in terms of owning up, let's say, to my mistakes, or to telling my manager upfront, this is something that I might not be able to do, and I would need your help. So that kind of mutual trust is something I feel is very important into a manager and an employer relationship. Similarly, I don't think anybody likes to be micromanaged. So this is something that I would personally not want, because I do understand that because we are still new.
What is micromanagement?
So
Because nobody, everybody, I don't think there's any person on this planet who says I like to be micromanaged, right? Even you
Right.
don't want your parents to stalk you, right? So what is micromanagement?
So somebody who doesn't give you the freedom of, let's say, thinking, not letting you do whatever you feel is right. Somebody who's always there to check every activity that you're doing and probably giving in inputs even when it is not required. That's what I feel is micromanaging. Like, for example, me sending out an email to somebody, and if I have to always keep my manager in loop, even though it's nothing relevant, that I feel is micromanaging, because I feel every activity that I'm doing in the company is being tracked by my manager constantly. If it's a business, if it's a critical task, then I do agree that my manager's intervention is needed. But if it's a very normal, a very casual task that I'm doing in the organization, I really don't think that including my manager in everything makes sense. So micromanaging is basically that which I want to avoid and which I would not want from a manager.
Medha, your managerial style?
I would say I would boil it down to 3 points. The first one being the person has to be open-minded. They have to be willing to accept their mistakes, open to new ideas, willing to understand that, you know, we could go in a different path, but we could achieve same results. I need not necessarily do the same style.
You guys are becoming too diplomatic. Be open.
Yeah, I will get to it.
Open-minded and all the stuff is more like, a poetry session you're asking for.
No, I think that is what I would expect. One is open-mindedness. The other is, like Rishika said, there should be a mutual trust. And the third and the most important thing, I believe, is guided independence. I've just started out my career. So while I like my independence to explore, experiment with different kind of strategies and different kinds of execution methodologies, I would still like an overarching guidance from a person who's had experience to tell me in their point of view, this might work, this might not work, but still give me the freedom to see if I want to go a different path. Opinions can be discussed, but at the end of the day, if the decision is left with a good, backup story that, okay, these are the pro and cons because of which I want to go ahead, even if you think it's wrong. So that kind of a freedom, guided independence.
Vishwa?
Yeah, Rishika and Medha were quite good words and lot of things. So I'll tell how I see my manager style. It's dependent on 3 factors. One is the personality. I need a manager who can sit and drink with me. That's the first thing I see. It has multiple layers.
What if it's a teetotaler?
Even if it is a teetotaler, if he's sitting with me and he's not drinking, but if he can sit and drink, then it means that he's open enough. He is non-judgmental, and he judges my work and not my personality. That single in action can actually define how the relationship with my manager is. Second would be, as Medha told us, guided independence. That is something that is very important. And I have worked under 2. Now I'm working with my 3rd manager, and I have worked under 2 managers in Zycus, and luckily both were someone who gave me space as well as guided me well enough when I was not able to steer through the challenges that were put against me. Be it Shabad, because that also is dependent on the time or your experience as well. Because when I'm new, to be honest, Vaibhav has seen me, and I don't know Rishika has known that or not, but I was someone who have difficulty in writing a single mail to some person as well. So that time Shabad guided me through for the first month, and then he purposefully put me into situations where I have to be the forefront, and the Dimanjan role is depending on a lot of collaboration. And post that, TK was my manager, and he was someone who gave me the importance of how to research and then produce your answers rather than just thinking of. So that kind of guided independence actually helps. And the third thing is, I'm really a person who is very honest, and I'm a theory why person. I'm intrinsically motivated. You don't have to push anything down my throat. I work at my own pace, but I make sure that I will deliver. If I am given a date, I will make sure that I get I'm my best. I give my best try and get it delivered by that time. So that I try to convey as soon as possible when I enter the organization. And when I was starting off, it was a bit difficult, but now I know that this is my space and it makes me easier to go with that kind of thing.
I think I have a different point of view than Biswa. I don't necessarily want to be friends with my manager. I think for me it's a work relationship, and as long as I'm able to respect the person that I'm working with, by that what I mean is somebody who's able to objectively break down my work and give me feedback on that. That is one. The second is, of course, the micromanagement part. How I define micromanagement is, I think, someone who has a bias to all of us as workers. We have different approaches. As long as we are clear on the objective, on the problem statement, however we reach the outcome, it's fine, because some of us are visual thinkers, some of us are analytical in nature. That should not matter. It should not be step 1, 2, 3, 4. It's your process. However you come to the outcome, it's fine. I think that's very important.
Tell me one thing. Let me give you an example. Would you be fine with a boss who does not micromanage but abuses a lot?
No, absolutely not. There needs to be personal respect.
Supposing you have to choose an abusive boss versus a micromanaging boss.
Micromanage.
Huh? So all of you would choose micromanaging boss over an abusive boss?
Am I forced to make a choice? Can I say not both?
Yes. Yes, you have to make a choice.
I will go with the abusive boss, not a micromanaging.
Okay. So Rishika, abusive versus micromanaging.
Micromanaging. I don't think I can take abuse from my manager.
Vaibhav, that's why she Ankit. Vaibhav?
I think micromanagement, because I've seen my friends who work in banking and they're hurled abuses every Thursday on a call in front of all their colleagues, and it's not nice. It's unbearable.
Micromanaging. So Medha?
Can you define abuse?
Ma behan ki gali. Trust me, I am not. I'll give you a situation, but you will be okay.
Okay, so it's abusive language usage, and
MCBC,
I think I would.
MCBC.
Okay, I think I would take abusive over micromanaging.
Okay, so 2:2. Okay, let me give you a situation. Let me see how you react. When I a long time back, EMC Square, which is now owned by Dell, the partner alliance manager was a guy who had joined from Microsoft. Okay, the then CEO Mukul Chugh. In a conference call, those was audio conferencing, not video conference that we have over there. He made a statement. Forget the situation, and I will not use abuse over here. Abe MC. देखो Microsoft में नौकरी कौन दिया? Okay, would you be able to take that? And that guy was giving you full freedom in front of 10 people.
I think I would be able to. I would be bold in that situation.
Supposing that Mukul Chugh, and you are the person from Microsoft.
Okay, I wouldn't mind. I would boldly come forward and tell them that these are the contributions I've made to the organization since I've joined Microsoft. These are the things that I'm good at. These are my strengths. That's why I am in Microsoft. So you can't question me as to why I am in Microsoft.
No, he was not. He had left Microsoft and joined EMC Square. So you will be fine in a situation like that?
Yeah, I can handle it.
I can handle it too.
Rishika, you can't.
I can't. Me neither.
Okay, so trust me, I can guarantee you with this thing. Okay, Vishwa and Medha, you cannot handle an abusive boss. It is not possible. It can completely erode your confidence to such an extent. Okay, you cannot perform. All this good statement that you make, yes, I know obviously you don't want an abusive boss. I gave you a very hard choice, but I would say any day, a micromanaging boss is, I know it's a worst case scenario, but micromanaging boss is better than abusive boss. You cannot handle it. Okay, that is because it's almost like domestic abuse. Anyway, so now we have about 18 to 20 minutes now. So I want to speak about the topic, which is which is always interests me, fascinates me. Demand generation or growth marketing, now what is called, versus product marketing, right? Few of you are in product marketing and few have been in kind of a demand generation role, right? And I don't know what you are doing presently. I know what Medha is doing to a certain extent. I know what Vaibhav is doing, but I don't know what Rishika and Vishwa is doing right now. Okay? But you have been in demand generation as far as I remember. And first question is, and I will ask 2-3 questions. You can answer it one. First, do you think demand generation will move under the sales function, the chief revenue officer? Before you say yes, the many SaaS companies already happening. Sirion Labs is one of them. It's an unicorn. Okay, it's in the CRM space. GEP is another one of them. Okay, then do you feel that product marketing will report in product management? Okay, okay, and not to the marketing? Do you feel the marketing as a function that we see, the umbrella function holding so many functions together, will remain as it is, or it will become specialized with VPs of demand generation, VPs of product marketing, with the brand marketing, okay, all that stuff? That is function. And most importantly, do you see that product marketing has been reduced to content marketing in most SaaS companies, at least in India? In fact, I think even in US, because I was working with iSurface in a global team over there, also product marketing was purely content marketing, content creation, not even content marketing, because you don't know whether the content is being used for marketing or not. It is content creation, right? Which is one level below content marketing. So anybody, you have, there are three questions. One, do you think demand generation will report to the sales function, product marketing to the product marketing function, management, marketing as an umbrella organization will distribute, and product marketing the future care?
I think I can take up on the product
Vaibhav, you have to be a little,
question.
unfortunately,
Should product mode?
Vaibhav, you're the only one.
Would you mind if I?
Yeah,
would you mind if I switch off my video for a bit?
Yeah, switch off a video. Yeah. But I don't think that is helping either. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So hopefully this is better now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
far,
This is
yeah.
way better.
Yeah. So I think I can answer the product marketing question. Should it report into product management or not? I think it should not, because they're different functions in the sense that product management is far closer to the product and the processes. So they have a bias towards that, which sort of roughly translates into the bottom of the funnel messaging. They would always think of prospects as a consumer, as a customer, and talk about features, functionalities, and all of that. Whereas as a product marketer, you have to take a holistic view of the entire funnel, from top of the funnel, middle of the funnel. And this is very important while enabling demand gen functions, enabling sales. And since we work very closely with all these functions, especially demand gen, it has to be independent. It has to sit differently from product management. The second question was about content marketing. Fortunately, in Zycus and currently in HireRadius, it's not been the case. Product marketing has been the dynamic profile that I think that you explained very well. It sits in the center of 4 core functions. I'm not sure if I can answer this question, but personally in Zycus, it was considered to be a very strategic profile. We did from analyst relations to product positioning to product launches. Everything was done by product marketing with minimum or limited intervention by product management.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think I'll go ahead, Rishika.
No, Medha, please go ahead. It's okay.
Okay, so to answer the question, I think I agree with Vaibhav on the first question. I think lead generation and product marketing should be in marketing as an overarching thing. It cannot go into revenue with sales, or it cannot go into product management for a simple reason. To talk about product marketing, it's at the center of marketing, sales, and product management. So that is one team that interacts with all of these teams, keeping in mind how to ensure the product reaches the customer rightfully with the right messaging, the right positioning. So it has to be independent. The minute you put it under product management, there is a high chance of skewing the thought process of a product marketer there. That is what I think. In terms of lead.
So then let me interrupt. Then Freshworks has product marketing reporting to chief product officer. Okay, Razorpay, these are all unicorns, big companies who have successfully marketed themselves. Has product marketing reporting to product management. So are they doing even Zoho? I think, not very sure, but I think Zoho too. So I think these people are doing something wrong.
No, I don't think they're doing anything wrong, because it really depends upon the style of business inside structural of the organization. It really depends what works for the CEO, what works for the heads, what works for the people within. For me personally, I would like to keep it independent. If I were a CEO and I'm trying to organize the entire structure of the company, I would keep it separate.
What about demand generation reporting into sales? Anybody agrees to that? But by the way, that is happening at a much faster pace than you can think of. Okay.
I agree with it.
Right now, I can name at least 10 unicorns, which is already the demand generation function is reporting into the chief revenue officer. At least 10. Okay. There may be many more, but I know about 10. Now, what about you? Is this something which worries you? that you no longer will be part of a marketing function, those who are in demand generation?
Yes, it
For
does.
example, in IT services, partner marketing, since Rishika is in partner marketing, and correct me if I'm wrong, alliances, right? They have their own separate marketing function. Okay. In big IT companies, including SaaS, like Salesforce or whatever, a analyst relationship is a totally independent function, does not report anywhere near marketing, nowhere. Okay. So these are realities that you are all know about. You think that is going to happen in a more structured way and more realistic way and more in a faster pace? Demand generation to revenue marketing. How many agree?
I don't
To
agree.
not revenue marketing, to chief revenue officer. So you
I don't agree.
Rishika and Vishwa.
I don't think that should happen. Even though if it's happening, I personally feel that I would not want to report to a salesperson, primarily because I do understand that it's very important for me to keep generating leads, keep working in the lines of what my sales team wants. But at the same time, a lot of marketing activities that we do are not just for leads. It's, let's say, for branding, for building a brand presence. And those are the things which cannot be quantified very easily. And I don't think sales would really get that or would really appreciate those kind of efforts as well, because they would be more concerned about their leads. If I'm reporting to someone in the sales team, my only end goal would be just to keep generating leads like a machine, which shouldn't be the case. As a marketer, I should look at the whole picture, the entire picture, and ensure that while I'm generating leads, while I'm leading to the growth of the company, at the same time, I'm also building my brand. I'm also working on making my brand presence, creating that presence online. So that's why I feel I should not be reporting to the salesperson.
No, that is one choice, but what do you think is happening? Is it all going to happen?
I personally don't think so. I still feel that even though we are working very closely with sales, marketing is still going to stay in a separate function altogether. So that's what I feel.
It is happening, and but I have one question. I might be very rudimentary, but I feel there is a difference between growth and the revenue officer and the sales team, which I see. It's not the same directly. If the person itself in the revenue officer is from a marketing domain, then I think it's not a problem of demand gen going into marketing, into the revenue marketing segment. Because my OKR are defined in a way which should be defined as a marketer, not as a salesperson. So if my OKRs are defined as a marketer, I don't think it will directly go into sales anytime soon. There is a segment which is now created as growth, which is pro sales and less marketing, but there is a lot of focus still happening in marketing. Yeah.
So okay, let me kind of argue this further. See, marketing broadly, if you see just 5 years back, right, there was no concept of product marketing. Product marketing in SaaS did not exist. In fact, Zycus itself, we started in 2018, and we lost Rohit Nair. I don't know how many of you know Rohit Nair, but Rohit Nair moved out because he felt that he did not get the function that he wanted. So there's a lot of friction happened during that time. 2018 time we started this function in Zycus, and it took almost a year of convincing Atish to start this function, right? Otherwise, what was happening was product marketing upstream was being handled by Monshi, downstream was handled by Rohit in terms of product marketing, and they did was whatever sales required, and they did that. So product management, Kanishk and Vikash, and since you both all four know them, were upset that not much attention was being paid to them. Okay, so there was broadly one function, demand generation, okay, which got bifurcated and all the stuff. A lot of other functions happened, and then there was product marketing came, then customer marketing came into the picture, then you could say a brand also, all the stuff came and all the stuff happened and all into the picture. So these are the four broad functions which kind of SaaS marketing rests on broadly. Now you could say event marketing, then some people put events under demand generation. Some people put customer marketing under product marketing. Some people put AR separately. Some people put AR under product marketing. Different depending upon company to company, right? But broadly, there are four functions. So you think these four functions will now coalesce into just two broad functions, demand generation and product marketing? And how will these two, if yes, how will these two work together?
I I don't really think that would happen, because I feel segmenting and creating sub teams within marketing is really helping, because we're able to focus on one sole goal. Like, for example, if I am in customer marketing, my entire goal at the end of the day is to ensure that my customers are happy. I'm able to reach out to them. I'm able to cross sell to them. So the entire goal is different in comparison to, let's say, a demand gen team, where a demand gen team is more concerned about getting new leads, getting new business altogether. It's not really concerned about retaining the existing customers. So having different teams has generally helped, and I feel that should be the case. Again, grouping them into one function would just lead to chaos, and we won't really know what everyone is working on. So I don't think that should happen.
I think, Dipto, I agree with Rishika. It is very important to have separate teams with focused goals, where each team is focusing on different aspects related to the customer. You cannot combine everything and expect, maybe if the world is transitioning towards generalist marketers, then probably yes, in that world it would make sense. But in an ideal world, I think it should be separate. The KPIs are different, the requirements are different, the results are different. You cannot measure a product marketer's achievements the way you would measure a lead generator marketers.
That is true in a way now, but just few years back, there was no concept of marketing qualified lead. Now, and marketing is to get away with the fact that, okay, we are doing something. Trust me, in the Zycus itself, what a lot of metrics that was being pursued in the last 1 or 2 years was not being pursued 2-3 years back. So even in product marketing have this that we get away with it because how will you measure success of product marketing? Trust me, I will not do this discussion over here now, but trust me, already metrics are being defined. Like, for example, the sales qualified lead, the bonus or the key target of the sales qualified opportunities that the entire organization creates is being carried by the marketing team and by the different sub teams, product marketing or demand generation, all this stuff. Though product marketing, as you know, will not play a direct role in creating sales qualified opportunities, right? And sales are no longer interested in MQL and MAL and all that stuff. Even SQL they don't want. In fact, I posted a post which said that they want a ready purchase order. Only then it will be a marketing qualified lead, right? So and that direction is already going. I mean, earlier we used to have download of content as a lead. Now you take Sam Thomas, he will not accept those leads anymore. He'll say nobody responds, right? So anyway, we will come back to that. So quick, I'm sorry, diverted a little bit. If you were CMO today, what would you change in SaaS marketing, if any?
I would personally, because like I mentioned earlier, that we have so many teams within marketing. This is something that I have felt from my experience as well. I feel there lacks a regular communication between these teams. So, for example,
which team?
Teams within marketing. Let's say there's a digital team, there is a customer marketing team, there's a demand gen team. So I feel there has to be a regular sync up between these teams so that we ensure that we're all working towards the same goal. Instead of us reaching out to the other team on a need basis, on a one-on-one basis, only when we feel that it's required, I think that should be changed, and there should be a regular communication that should happen so that it's easier and all of us know that we're on the same page while we're working for the same goal. The end goal of every marketer is more or less the same, that we need to generate new leads, we need to generate more revenue, we need to have new customers on board. But if you're working in silos, then I feel we basically lack knowledge about what the other team is doing. So that's something that I would want to ensure that is happening, even if there are, let's say, 10 marketing teams within the marketing organization. And apart from that, so there's another thing that I personally feel, because I have so many friends who are working in B2C, so I see the kind of campaigns that they run. I personally would want to experiment with such kind of fun campaigns as well with B2B. As of now, I feel the messaging that we see on, let's say, on a LinkedIn platform is very like a very business oriented language, very serious, and you need to know the good terms, you need to know the jargons, only then you would understand what the company is trying to say. I would want to simplify it for our target audience, and so that even if I'm not generating lead, let's say I am getting that quirky content, I'm getting to consume that, I would not be a lead for that company, but at least I would remember that brand. I would know that this is a company who does such quirky ads, who does such fun messaging ads. So that's why I want to stand out by doing something which is not really happening. I'm sure companies are moving to from serious communication to some fun and informal communication as well, but I would want to do that more.
Yeah.
Anybody else? You're not spoken for a long time. Are you there? Or just put
Yes,
your,
yes, Dipto. I'm here. So I think I can go on this one. As a CMO, one, of course, the synergy amongst departments. I think few functions suffer from bad perception within the marketing function itself. For example, product marketing. I think it's still perceived as content marketing, and that what it hinders is helping demand gen or campaign management in a for better messaging, because I think for the first 6 months that I joined Zycus, I personally struggled with that a lot. I think when you're very early on in your career, are insecure about that, and since that is what I heard all the time, I sort of start thinking that as well. But now in retrospect, I think it's pretty juvenile. That is one thing. Have more open communication. Have a singular objective as well. So if we can align, if for it can be whatever, if demand gen is aligned to MQL, product marketers should be aligned to that as well. So there is a uniform understanding. Second, I think since the theme of today is first year in SaaS, I would want to have first 3-4 months as a rotational stint within SaaS marketing. I think one of the challenges that I faced early on was not having a grasp of SaaS business as a whole. I didn't know how sales work. I didn't know how product management works or customer marketing. So it's so vastly different from what we have known. So it took me a lot of time. I remember I used to go through a lot of AVOC documents, try and understand why a certain feature is being built by product management. Then I would spend a lot of time on Salesforce trying to understand how is the prospect journey going from A to B. So that is something that if that is cleared from day one or in the first quarter, it would really help people who are management graduates like us to perform better.
Anybody else?
I'll go next, Deepto. I think I agree with the points made by both Rishika and Vaibhav. But adding on to it, what I would do is firstly clearly differentiate what is lead generation, what is product marketing, what is customer marketing, what is account-based marketing. Define the OKRs that each of these teams have to work with, because then they know the insecurity factor that Vaibhav mentioned. That is something even I faced a year ago, probably. So when you define those OKRs, when you define those KPIs and say this team is responsible for this activity, it really helps. That is the first thing. The second thing that I would do is, as Rishika mentioned, I'm a big fan and actually a big criticizer who constantly thinks why our communications are so formal. It's extremely formal. Hello, dear sir, blah, blah, blah. It has to break that norm. Today, B2C, I understand we cater to a different audience, but at the end of the day, behind that company, probably the head of logistics that we are speaking to or the CMO that we are speaking to is still a human. He's tired of reading those mails time and again. We need to break that kind of a messaging. I would encourage that as a CMO. That is the second thing. And the third thing, like Vaibhav mentioned, is when I entered the industry in Netcore, I also had no clue as to what was lead generation doing, what was account-based marketing doing. It took some time for me to interact with those folks and understand. And I definitely, I wouldn't say 3 months, maybe this isn't in an ideal case scenario, but definitely at least 4 to 5 months of a stint in each of these different teams to understand what is happening. If I wouldn't do this, had B2B covered in, if B2B was covered in colleges, then I would remove the stint part, because it's not, then yeah.
Vishwa.
I'll conclude that on my thoughts is there would be problems and there are everywhere, but the major thing, the three things that I would focus on is first one is what have you known, what have you learned? What do we know and what have we learned? It's a very famous, it's all over by Gone, but the major problem where it comes is today's CMO, they have learned all of this, but after that, they're still catering to as a support function of sales or still catering to a CEO. So that needs to change in general. A CMO, if I am a CMO today, I need to change the perception of marketing in general in the whole organization. That's my first instinct that I would like to do. Second is the people, and third is the philosophy. The second is the people or the culture part that we see is there is one aspect of marketing that never goes away is experimenting. But if we see there are no experimenters. If you go to a scientific research field, there are people who are just experimenting. They don't do it for anything else. They just experiment and report their findings. Marketing itself, if you want marketing to be a science and not a support function or not something that is not understood, we need to have a domain called experimental. If we have experimenters
Domain called?
or a role in the marketing which is only focused on experimenting or experimenters, like I like to call myself as an experimenter when I do a A/B test or even a basic thing of changing color of PTA button. If I'm doing it without the purpose of lead gen, and then there is a separate team who works on only experimenting and gaining insights, that includes a lot of things, not only A/B tests. Always everything, every aspect of the marketing function that we have, we need, we will have a greater confidence in proving our points to the organization and proving our points to ourselves as well. With the insecurity of any domain comes from that perspective because we lack data. If I have the data, I can always prove it. And the third is the philosophy.
Yeah, philosophy. Go ahead. I'm interested. Go ahead.
The philosophy is as a domain, B2B marketing or SaaS marketing is still seen as something which is inferior to B2C. Like even in our subconsciously, we are telling that B2C has greater campaigns, B2C has everything. But if you see, technically, we are much more smarter than B2C marketing because we, the consumer or the human that we are trying to market our products to.
So let me ask a question. How many of you, given a choice, would go into a B2C company like Nestle or Levers? Right. Now? One,
I'll
four.
stick to tech.
Rishika?
I don't mind because I'm still learning, so I would want to.
Medha? Yes, Medha. So no, yes, then Medha.
I think I agree with Rishika. I'm still learning. I'm
Okay,
still a
so,
novice.
Vaibhav, B2C, or you get an offer from Nestle today, would you take it up?
I would not. I think I have an interesting perspective in it because I did intern.
Yeah, you did
for a big
intern.
FMCG company.
Yeah,
I worked. Yeah, I interned for Mars Strictly. There are definitely a lot of pros there. Marketing budgets are huge. Salaries are nice, but just the pace at which the things were done was very, very slow and excruciating. I mean, minimum, there was hierarchical roadblocks in doing simplest things. Whereas in B2B, SaaS specifically, you can have an idea, get an approval and execute it. The gratification is there.
Join Microsoft and see what is bureaucracy and hierarchy.
So definitely you go on a bigger organization that will always be there.
Bigger organizations have to have it. Anyway, I will have to, sorry, because this is going on and it can go on till cows come home because we have so many things to say, but obviously we also have to keep track of time. Any questions that you have, guys? Any questions that you have which you want to either of these to address or Semi to address?
I
so you didn't
have
answer
a
the
question.
automation question.
Yeah,
I have a question, Deepto.
Yeah, go ahead, Mira.
You started your career with B2B and SaaS marketing. Did you want to?
No, I started my career in advertising. I never wanted to leave advertising. I started as a copywriter, which is today known as a content writer. I used to make ads, create ads, right? Ad films and all that stuff. But it's just that I got moved into client servicing and the pay. I was always, grass is always on the greener side. So I moved into, I got IBM, I did a hiring program where they hired non-IT professionals, people who with non-IT background. They wanted to hire for sales and marketing. So I got hired, and that's how my journey into technology and SaaS marketing happened. SaaS was accidental. It was not planned at all, to be very frank. I mean, even, yeah, go ahead. Any other questions?
So the first question, wherein you took a vote whether marketing will become more automated. You said we'll discuss that later.
So my belief is that, and this is dangerous to say, and I'm pretty certain it will be that way. Okay, in 2008, okay, and I'm not bragging, but in 2008, I submitted a paper at Gartner, which I mentioned that mobile phone will be the mobile platform of choice in 5 years' time. It was not published. It was not allowed to be published, but it happened, right? Today, you consume more content on your mobile phone than on your laptop, right? Content consumption. There's content creation is laptop, content consumption is mobile phone, right? So I believe that the demand generation function will not be part of marketing. That is fait accompli. It is 100% sure. Okay, no matter what you say, it is 100% sure. Okay, the product marketing function will remain under marketing because product management do not have the expertise to manage marketing, so that will remain under marketing. But a lot of functions that you have, the automation that is happening will become far more intuitive. Okay, AI is becoming far more pervasive, very powerful, and the kind of insights that human can get, machines can get better. Surprisingly, they can get better. Which, and one more thing, there's something called social cost of innovation. You know, driverless cars. You must have heard of driverless cars, right? It is mainstream. It works perfect. There is hardly any problem with driverless cars. But and big companies have driverless cars, right? How? Why do you think driverless cars have not become mainstream, quote unquote? Because it will lead to huge job losses across sectors. Okay, drivers is just one of them. Many other, traffic cops, the entire job system will get into it. So till such time the social cost is more than the innovation cost, driverless car will not become mainstream. Moment it becomes, like for example, e-invoicing. When a company buys an e-invoicing software, and Vaibhav will know this because it's in AR and all the stuff, automatically it leads to job losses. It's a guarantee. It's written in paper. But do companies not invest in that? They do. Why? Because the social cost is not as much as the innovation cost, right? So moment the social cost is goes more, then I should publish a paper at Harvard on this. Anyway, the moment the social cost goes more than the innovation cost, it will never happen. Government will not allow. For example, work from home that you think is permanent, I can guarantee you it will not be permanent. Why? Because the government will force Freshworks, Zycus, Infosys, TCS. First, drivers are not getting jobs, caterers are not getting jobs, these are not getting jobs, restaurants are not getting jobs. You have to open up. You have to open up. So this permanency and all this hybrid will happen perhaps, but permanency will not. Rentals, the market has crashed. All of you are working from home in your hometown, right? I don't think you are paying rent right now wherever you were. You're not in Bombay. You're not in Chennai. You're not in Vaibhav is not in Hyderabad or Bhubaneswar. So those are social costs. When the social cost is more, innovation can never overtake. Never. So right now you see that, okay, it's not possible. How is it possible? All that stuff. But you go back in time, any innovation, internet and all the stuff became an innovation only when the social cost was less than the cost of innovation. Anyway, so I will going on and on. Any other questions?
I have one question, Dipto.
Yeah.
So knowing what you know as at this point, you've been a veteran in SaaS marketing. If the roles were switched, if you were in our place, how would you chart your career?
I would firstly, difficult, but I would firstly get into marketing, definitely spend some time in sales after some time. I would also spend some time in product management and then come back into marketing. The problem with most marketing in SaaS companies, Rishika said that quirky advertising, Medha said creative advertising. The problem with most of this is that what you don't understand is the audience does not respond to too quirky ads. I'll give you an example. You think Microsoft, Salesforce, Google, IBM don't have money to hire the best. O&M, Ogilvy and Mather, is IBM's agency, okay, which also does Pidilite, Fevicol, which we are famous for. The Fevicol ads are done by O&M. So does IBM ads. You think IBM cannot pay to O&M to create those quirky ads? They don't work. They have tried. They don't work. They don't work. B2B always is a slow burn. Don't work means you will get a response, then it will be an inflection point, and then it will go down. Because why? Remember one thing which you should always know this, and you should take this to your grave. My job can go if I buy an automation tool which does not work, but your job will not go if you buy a car and which does not work. You can get fired, and Zycus is famous for selling tools to companies where the procurement officer lost their jobs. 2-3 times it happened. So it happens. There's a famous line in IT: nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. At one point of time, IBM was the largest IT company in the world. It no longer is, of course. Okay. So, Vaibhav, what was the question?
How would you chart your career?
My chart would be, I would obviously get into marketing, because if I get into sales, then I will not be able to move into marketing. Once I get into marketing, I will push myself to get into sales. 2 years in sales. First of all, make more money. Okay, that's more important, right? You need money, right? So make more money. Secondly, if possible, spend some time in product management and then come back into marketing. That will make you an extremely seasoned marketer. because you will know why the product the management creates those features. You will know what problems the sales faces. Okay, we obviously want to create the leads and get away with it, right? But why does the lead work and does not work? So those aspect is something I would do, and then I would become a SaaS marketer. And one more reason it helps. I've been in sales also, by the way. Okay, I have spent 2.5 years in sales in IBM. Okay, one thing happens is that you will never see a CMO. Never. I can't see. I do not know of any example in SaaS marketing, SaaS companies where a CMO has become a CEO, but lot of revenue function people have become CEOs, right? So that is the another way to reach the very top. Unfortunately, even in SaaS marketing, even though marketing is a very critical component, unlike say IT services, marketing just okay. So yeah, so I would do these three things. But definitely, I feel SaaS. I agree with all you people. SaaS is more exciting than B2C for sure. If Nestle gives me a job at 2x, yes, I will take up, obviously, no doubt. And doesn't matter which the company is. Even if Al Qaeda gives me a job at 2 times the salary, I'll join. So that is different. But anyway, jokes apart, that's what I would do. Any other questions? I'm sorry I took more than 15 minutes of extra time. Any other questions? I will cut some part of the last one, or maybe not. I don't have anything. Any other questions? Any other things? So if there isn't any, I'll just stop the recording, and I will. You can ask some questions after the recording. So